Keep your head on a swivel. The CJOB Sports Show is back, and we won't let up. This is CJOB 68, your sports information superstation.
8 minutes after 7. Welcome back to Hour 2 of the CJOB Sports Show from the Upper Deck Sports Bar here at McPhillips Station Casino. Well, it's not every day a Winnipegger, or Manitoban anyway, heads off to Italy to try to get a spot on the international motorsports stage, race at Monza. But that's what David Richert is going to be doing in the next few weeks. And David joins me now on the telephone. And before we get to the Italian portion of your auto racing journey, David, I'll maybe get you to tell our listeners, you're from just south of Winnipeg, I know, how you got interested in auto racing and how you got to where you are today in terms of trying to become one of the top drivers in the sport.
Sure thing, Bob. Well, I grew up on a farm just south of Winnipeg, close to the town of Niverville.
Mm-hmm.
And then I turned on the TV one day, and I saw a Formula One race on TV, and I thought, well, that's kind of cool and different. And I was never a car guy. Like, I would never have my head under the hood of a car. I didn't know anything about engines or motors. So it kind of came out of nowhere. And I had a chance to go to Indianapolis to watch a Formula One Grand Prix race when they competed through the infield road course there. And I was on the upper deck at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway looking down at the cars going by at, 330 kilometers an hour. And I thought, it would be a lot more fun to be down in those cars driving than up in the stands watching. Plus, being the kid from Manitoba, everyone told me I couldn't do it. So I thought, all right, well, just give it a shot and see what happens.
So when did you get in your first car? Where did your actual driving career begin, David?
Right. Well, we start, most young drivers will start in go-karts. So that's what I did. I started in Gimli. At the south end of the runway. At the north end, they run sports cars, and at the south end is the Manitoba Karting Association. So I went out, bought my first go-kart. Dad and I built a trailer at home to haul it up there. And I just went up there week in and week out and tried to figure out what this racing stuff all was about.
Yeah, so obviously the visit to Indy, and then once you got behind the wheel, you were hooked, eh? Yeah,
that's exactly what it was. It was the trip to Indy, and then once I did 2 or 3 years of the go-karting, then I thought, all right, I'd love to have a shot at going further with this. So I went to Montreal for a week-long racing school that they have there. And then after that, just began to test for some professional race teams throughout North America and Europe.
So you went to a racing school in Montreal.
Yeah, exactly. It seems interesting, but it's a week-long course where they literally just give you the general dynamics of a vehicle and how to drive it safely, and how to make it go quickly. And some of the people who were in the class with me, they weren't all aspiring professional race car drivers. There were guys who maybe got into too many accidents on the public street, or those who were just loved the sport and always wanted to get a taste of what it meant or what it was like to drive that kind of a car. So It was really a perfect stepping stone to get into the single-seater race cars.
And so during that course, David, did they tell you how to try and get hooked up with a racing team?
Not so much. That's one of the things that maybe now, that was maybe 9-10 years ago. Now they're starting to get more into doing that because the business side of racing is so incredibly important. So now when you go to race school, they will probably teach you a lot about the marketing and the sponsorship and getting involved with race teams. But for there, it was just strictly a driving kind of thing.
So I know that in 2008 and 2009, you raced for Volkswagen in their Jetta TD1 Cup. Tell us what that's all about.
Yeah, it was a Jetta TDI Cup. Basically, they were looking for the top 30 young drivers in North America. And I was fortunate enough to make it in. Basically, they had a big driver selection process where you had to apply online, and then you got invited to a driver shootout with 100 other drivers. And then from there, they gave you a 4-day kind of test on what they thought you could do.
Mm-hmm.
And so fortunately, I made it into that. And we basically traveled throughout North America driving these little Volkswagen Jetta race cars. So it was the perfect stepping stone and entry into professional racing, kind of give me the, not just the driving experience, but also the off-track experience.
How fast did those cars go?
I think those ones, we only got up to about 210 kilometers an hour, but for
that's
Jetta,
all, eh?
It's still pretty quick in a Jetta.
Just 210. Is that all, David?
Hey, where you get the fun is when you go through the corners. When you can go through the corner at 170, 180 kilometers an hour, and you have to judge, if you go a little bit too fast, you're in the wall, or a little bit too slow and everyone passes you. That's where the real enjoyment is.
So could you make any money doing that, or how do you finance this?
It's one of those things that is the most difficult thing about being a race car driver.
Mm-hmm.
For myself, maybe 5-6 years ago, I thought you could make it based off of talent alone. Unfortunately, it's not like hockey or baseball or a lot of the other sports where if you're good, you're going to at least get a shot to move forward.
Yeah.
Here you can be the fastest driver on the planet, but unless you have the financial backing to move forward, you're really screwed. So you can go home and cry and complain that life is unfair and sucks that your parents aren't billionaires and can't give you all the money, or you can kind of pull up your socks and do something about it. So at the time, I was getting my commerce degree at the U of M, and I've tried to put that to decent use. And there's just been a lot of local supporters from Silver Jeans to Speed World, all just helping me out get to that next level.
Yeah, you spent most of last year, I guess, basically fundraising, eh?
Exactly, and it's really trying to make myself, it's hard because you want to go out there and promote yourself, but you also don't want to come off as being egotistical. But at the end of the day, I don't really have a storefront or a product. I'm the product. So trying to sell yourself can be a little bit awkward at times, but it's one of those things that if you want to do what you love to do, you just got to suck it up and do the fundraising. And it's been, the support I received from the local community has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. So now you've signed a race for Team Torino Motorsport in Italy. How did that come about?
Basically, that was a lot of knocking on doors. I was at the point where I had to decide what I wanted to drive this next year. I knew I had a little bit of funding. I could have stuck to the sports car side of things and jumped into a Porsche for a few races. But to me, being a big Formula One fan, I wanted to get back into the single-seater race car, and that ultimately provides me with the most opportunity for the future. So I checked around on different places who was looking for drivers and where I might be able to fit in nicely, and Italy had the best opportunity. So to race at Monza and Imola, it's going to be a dream come true.
Yeah, well, but how did you make contact or convince these people that you would be a good driver for them?
It was literally just sending out email after email after email and finding out who would respond.
Yeah.
When I got someone who responded who actually spoke English, that was fantastic. Not that they have to speak English there, but this was someone, the team owner is a younger guy, probably closer to my age, in the late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a 2 or 3 car race team, and they had some openings, so we just chatted back and forth, and they seemed like the most professional organization and group that I talked to out of all of them.
Yeah.
So because of that, I figured let's give it a go. They're letting me stay in the race shop for the month or 2 that I'm out there right at the start now, and just helping me out in every way possible.
And so had they checked into how you did on the Jetta TDI Cup circuit and, that you had some qualifications?
Exactly, yeah. Basically, I sent them a race resume as well as some reference letters from the people at Volkswagen. And, the Jetta TDI Cup really prepared me to a phenomenal extent, the kind of touring that we had there. There's some great drivers and great coaches, so it helped a lot.
So they've committed to you that you will be driving in some races at Monza, is that right?
That's absolutely correct. We're going to start the first one at Imola now in May, and then Monza's coming up a little later on this year, and then we'll hit up a couple of other tracks yet too in Italy. We'll determine that in the next few weeks.
So where can you go from there, David? Where will this lead you, do you think?
Well, that's exactly why we did the single-seater, because if you go into sports cars, you're really stuck in sports cars. It's a lot harder to move from the sports cars back into the open wheel. So it makes my opportunities endless for next year. I'd love to get into Formula 3, which is really, it'll be like junior hockey, the junior levels, where if you succeed in Formula 3, you got a chance to move right into Formula 1.
Yeah.
In fact, if you finish first, second, or third in the Italian Formula 3 championship, then you get a day of testing with Ferrari's Formula 1 team.
Okay.
So to be able to do that really, in motor racing, it doesn't get any bigger than Ferrari and Formula 1. So we'll see. We'll see how this year shakes out and already start working on next year.
So you have to work your way up through the ranks, basically.
Exactly, yeah. It's part finances and part what you can do on the racetrack that's going to determine where you go.
Yeah. What's your ultimate dream then, to drive a car in an F1 race?
Yeah, Formula 1 is the pinnacle level of motorsport for myself. It's the fastest cars on the planet, and as a driver, you want to be in a car that accelerates, brakes, and corners faster than any car out there. So that obviously is Formula 1. If it doesn't happen, hey, if I can get into a race series where I can be competing against some of the best drivers in the world, that will be successful for myself.
Sure. How old are you, David?
I'm 28 years old.
How long have you given yourself to kind of reach your goals?
I think I've refrained from setting any kind of arbitrary number because if I would have, when I started, I was about 20 years old, and if I would have said, look, if by 25 I'm not, I haven't achieved what I want to do, then I'm going to give up. But if that would have happened, everything has really taken off in the last 3 years, and I would have missed out on that. So I think I'm just, as long as the doors keep opening for me, I'll keep walking through them, and we'll see what happens.
And you believe obviously you do, that you're a good enough driver to excel at a very high level.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a lot more than being crazy. You know, I'm not really a crazy guy who would jump off of a roof into a pool or something wild like that.
Yeah, you don't sound too crazy.
Well, at this level, you really have to have a good head on your shoulders, because if you crash the race car, you have to pay for it. So you could be extremely fast, but if in lap 2 you put the car in the wall, it's going to hamper how many races you can get out there and do. And for a person like myself who doesn't have an unlimited budget, that's a massive deal.
Yeah. Well, listen, David, I appreciate you doing this. We wish you the best of luck in Italy. I'll check in with you when you get back, and we'll find out how things went over there. And all the best in your pursuit of getting into an F1 car someday.
Thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate it.
Okay, David Richert, as he said, he's from Niverville originally, lives in Winnipeg now, heading off on the 6th of April to Italy, where he's going to get hooked up with a race team over there and drive some races in Monza. And beyond that, who knows? Maybe one day from Manitoba we have an F1 driver. Wouldn't that be something? All right, I'll come right back with the CJOB Sports Show from the Upper Deck Sports Bar at McPhillips Station Casino.
Time for a breather, but we'll be back on the field in no time. You're listening to the CJOB Sports Show on the Superstation, CJOB 68.